It all started on move-in day, a momentous occasion for any university student. Dorm life was supposed to be about independence, late-night pizza runs, and forging lifelong friendships. For me, though, it turned into something far more unexpected. I arrived at my dorm room with 2 suitcases stuffed to the brim, a cardboard box filled with snacks because priorities, and a vague sense of dread. Sharing a space with someone new can feel like rolling dice. You never quite know what you're going to get. Would they be messy, loud, annoyingly uptight, or worse, would we have nothing in common? But when I saw him lugging his stuff down the hallway, I felt a flicker of relief. It was Alex, a guy I'd met through mutual friends during orientation week. He had this easygoing charm that made him instantly likable. His smile could light up a room, and he had one of those personalities that just clicked with people. "Hey, man," he called out as he spotted me, waving enthusiastically. "Looks like we're roomies." We high-fived, exchanged pleasantries, and spent the next hour unpacking our lives into this tiny shared space. My side of the room quickly became a chaotic mess of clothes, books, and random knickknacks I hadn't realized I'd brought. Alex, on the other hand, seemed to have a system. Everything had its place. His neatly folded shirts were stacked in drawers, his shoes lined up against the wall, and his desk organized with precision. By the end of the day, we were already joking around like old pals. Alex cracked jokes about how my half of the room looked like a tornado had hit it, while I teased him about being too perfect. We bonded over our mutual love of video games, bad puns, and caffeine-fueled study sessions. Little did I know, living with Alex would become an adventure unlike anything I'd imagined. As the weeks went by, our friendship deepened. We fell into a comfortable routine, alternating between goofing off and helping each other navigate the challenges of university life. But there was something about Alex that intrigued me beyond his charm. It wasn't just his laid-back demeanor or his athletic build. It was the way he carried himself. Confident but not arrogant, relaxed but still mysterious. Over time, I began noticing little things about him, like how he always seemed comfortable in his own skin, no matter the situation, or how he had a habit of leaving his towel draped casually over his shoulder after showers, as if he didn't have a care in the world. At first, I chalked it up to nothing. After all, we were both young adults navigating the chaos of university life. What did it matter if he walked around in sweatpants or lounged shirtless? Plenty of guys did that, right? Living in a dorm has its quirks. There's always someone blasting music at 3 a.m., someone else microwaving fish in the communal kitchen, and endless debates over whose turn it is to clean the bathroom. Despite these challenges, Alex and I quickly settled into a rhythm. Our friendship blossomed over late-night gaming sessions, Netflix marathons, and impromptu trips to the campus cafe. Alex was everything you'd want in a roommate, tidy most of the time, considerate, and hilarious. He had a knack for making even the dullest moments entertaining, whether it was his impressions of professors or his ridiculous conspiracy theories about cafeteria food. He kept things lively, and yet there was something about him that intrigued me beyond his charm. It wasn't just his laid-back demeanor or his athletic build. It was the way he carried himself. Confident but not arrogant, relaxed but still mysterious. One evening, we decided to order takeout from our favorite burger joint and binge-watch a new series everyone was talking about. As usual, Alex took charge of setting up the snacks while I queued up the episode. By the time we settled onto our respective sides of the couch, the room smelled like greasy fries and melted cheese. "This show better be good," Alex said, leaning back with a satisfied sigh. "I'm starving. It's supposed to be amazing," I replied, grabbing a handful of chips. "Everyone says it's got plot twists you won't see coming." As the opening credits rolled, I glanced over at Alex. He was sprawled out on the couch, wearing nothing but a pair of sweatpants and a loose t-shirt. His hair was still damp from his earlier shower, and he looked completely at ease. It struck me then how effortlessly confident he was. Most people I knew would have been self-conscious lounging around like that, but Alex seemed completely unfazed. The show turned out to be as gripping as everyone promised, but my attention kept drifting back to Alex. There was something magnetic about him, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Maybe it was the way he laughed at the funny parts, throwing his head back with genuine amusement. Or maybe it was the way he absent-mindedly stretched his arms above his head, drawing attention to his toned physique. Whatever it was, I found myself watching him almost as much as I was watching the screen. And the more I noticed, the harder it became to ignore. I hesitated, unsure whether to bring up our earlier conversation. But then I remembered his smirk, the way he'd left things hanging. If I didn't ask now, I might never work up the nerve again. I've been thinking about what you said, I admitted, about me not having seen anything yet. He chuckled, clearly pleased with himself. Ah, so you're still curious. Of course I am, I shot back. How could I not be? You practically dangled a mystery in front of me and then walked away. Well, he said, leaning closer, if you really want to know. A few nights later, the opportunity presented itself again. Our flatmates were out celebrating someone's birthday, and Alex suggested we stay in and order pizza. By the time the food arrived, we were sprawled across the couch, laughing over old memes and reminiscing about embarrassing moments from high school. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter softened, replaced by a comfortable silence that felt heavier than usual. Alex stretched lazily, his shirt riding up slightly to reveal a sliver of his toned stomach. My eyes flickered downward instinctively, and when I looked back up, I caught him watching me with a knowing smile. You're doing it again, he teased, his voice low. Doing what? I asked, feigning innocence. Staring, he said, tilting his head and studying me intently. What is it about me that's got you so fascinated? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? Sure, there was the obvious answer, the undeniable physicality of him, but it was more than that. There was something magnetic about Alex, something that drew me, and even when I tried to resist. Maybe I'm just jealous. I joked weakly, hoping to deflect the attention. Jealous? He raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Of what? I shrugged, trying to play it cool. You seem so confident, like you don't care what anyone thinks. For a moment, Alex looked thoughtful. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. It's not about confidence, he said quietly. It's about owning who you are. People spend so much time worrying about what others think of them. They forget to just exist. Be yourself. His words hit me harder than I expected. In that moment, Alex wasn't just my roommate or my friend. He was someone who saw the world differently, who embraced life with a boldness I admired but struggled to emulate. And sometimes, he added with a sly grin, owning who you are means embracing your strengths. All of them. Before I could respond, he stood up and stretched dramatically, giving me yet another glimpse of his physique. This time, though it felt deliberate, a playful challenge designed to push me further. All right, fine, I said, throwing up my hands in mock surrender. You win. I'm officially intrigued. So, tell me, what's the big secret? Alex smirked, clearly enjoying the moment. Patience, my friend. Some mysteries are worth waiting for. The next week passed in a blur of lectures, assignments, and caffeine-fueled study sessions. Despite the chaos, my thoughts kept drifting back to Alex. His words echoed in my mind, taunting me with their ambiguity. What did he mean by strengths? And why did he seem so intent on keeping me guessing? One afternoon, after a particularly grueling exam, I returned to the dorm to find Alex lounging on his bed, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up as I entered, his expression unreadable. "How'd it go?" he asked casually. "Terrible," I muttered, collapsing onto my own bed. "I think I bombed half the questions." Alex chuckled, setting his phone aside. "Don't stress too much. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for." His reassurance was unexpected and oddly comforting. For someone who exuded confidence, Alex had a knack for making others feel seen. It was one of the many contradictions that made him so intriguing. We spent the rest of the afternoon chatting about everything and nothing, our conversation flowing effortlessly as always. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the room, Alex suddenly turned to me with a mischievous glint in his eye. "You know," he said slowly, "you've been pretty patient lately." I blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "Oh, thanks." He grinned, clearly pleased with himself. "But patience should be rewarded, don't you think?" Before I could respond, he stood up and disappeared into the bathroom. When he reemerged a few minutes later, he was wearing nothing but a towel wrapped loosely around his waist. My heart skipped a beat as I realized what was happening. "Remember when I said you hadn't seen anything yet?" he asked, his voice dripping with confidence. I nodded, unable to speak. "Well," he continued, stepping closer, "now's your chance." Alex's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. My pulse quickened as I watched him move with deliberate grace, each step amplifying the tension in the room. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze steady and unwavering. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, almost challengingly. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Ready for what?" "For the truth," he replied simply. With that, he reached for the knot holding his towel in place and let it fall to the floor. In that moment, everything clicked. The teasing, the hints, the cryptic comments, it all made sense now. Alex wasn't just confident, he was proud. Proud of who he was, proud of his body, and unapologetic about sharing it with the world, or at least with me. I stared, momentarily speechless. What I saw wasn't just impressive, it was extraordinary. It was clear now why he'd been so enigmatic, why he'd taken such pleasure in building up to this moment. He wanted me to see him, not just as a roommate or a friend, but as someone unafraid to embrace every aspect of himself. Wow, I managed finally, breaking the silence. "You weren't kidding." Alex laughed, clearly enjoying my reaction. "Told you I wasn't lying." The moment lingered between us, charged with a mix of emotions I couldn't quite untangle. Admiration, surprise, and something deeper, something I wasn't ready to name, swirled in my chest. Alex stood there, completely at ease, as if this revelation was just another ordinary day for him. And maybe it was. But for me, everything felt different now. So, I broke the silence first, my voice quieter than I intended. "What happens next?" Alex tilted his head, considering the question. His smirk softened into a genuine smile, one that made him look almost vulnerable despite the boldness of the situation. "That's up to you," he said simply. "Up to me," I echoed, unsure how to process the weight of those words. Did he mean we could go back to normal? Or was this an invitation to explore whatever this strange connection between us might become? He nodded, stepping closer until he was within arm's reach. "Look, I didn't do this to make things weird or complicated. I did it because I trust you, and because I thought you deserved to know the truth." His honesty caught me off guard. For all his confidence, Alex had always been careful not to overstep boundaries. This moment felt like an extension of that, a gesture of openness rather than expectation. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "This is a lot." "You don't have to say anything," he replied gently. "Not right now, anyway. Just think about it. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it." With that, he turned and grabbed his towel from the floor, wrapping it around his waist again. The spell was broken, or maybe it wasn't. As he walked back toward the bathroom, I realized the ball was firmly in my court. Later that night, after Alex had gone to bed, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more daunting than the last. Could our friendship survive this? Would it change into something else entirely? Or would things go back to the way they were before, untouched by tonight's events? As much as I wanted answers, part of me appreciated the uncertainty. Life rarely handed out clear endings, especially when it came to relationships as complex as ours. Maybe that was the point, not knowing where this would lead, but being okay with the journey nonetheless. The next morning, Alex greeted me with his usual grin, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Morning," he said cheerfully, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Sleep well." I hesitated, searching his face for any sign of awkwardness or regret. There was none, just the same easygoing charm that had drawn me to him in the first place. "Yeah," I replied finally, returning his smile. Like a baby, he nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. Then, without missing a beat, he added, "By the way, take your time figuring things out. No rush." His casual tone was reassuring, even though the underlying message was anything but simple. He wasn't pressuring me to make a decision. He was giving me space to figure out what I truly wanted. And in that moment, I realized that was exactly what I needed. Days turned into weeks, and life in the dorm resumed its chaotic rhythm. We fell back into our routines, gaming sessions, late-night snacks, and endless conversations about everything under the sun. On the surface, nothing had changed. But beneath it all, there was a new layer to our dynamic. An unspoken understanding that hovered between us like a question waiting to be answered. One evening, as we sat side by side watching a movie, Alex nudged me playfully. "Still thinking?" he asked, his tone light but curious. I glanced at him, meeting his gaze for the first time in days. "Yeah," I admitted, "but I think I'm getting closer." He smiled, satisfied with my response. "Good. Let me know when you're ready." And so, the chapter remained unwritten for now. Whatever lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. Alex had given me a gift, not just in revealing a piece of himself, but in trusting me enough to decide what came next. Whether we stayed friends, grew closer, or ventured into uncharted territory, the choice was mine to make. For the first time in a long while, I felt okay with not having all the answers. After all, some stories are better left open.